All right, welcome everyone to another deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty big, something that seems like it's everywhere these days, artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it's definitely having a moment.
It really is, and to really get a grip on it, we've pulled together, well, a pretty diverse set of sources. We've got some in-depth looks at the security side of AI, predictions from the folks who are actually building it, even just a broad overview of the whole field to, set the stage. And our aim here, as always, is to cut through all the noise and really distill what you need to know, what's actually important right now in AI.
Sounds like we've got our work cut out for.
We do, but that's the fun part, right? So let's jump right in. First up, we've got this document, 1802.07228v2.pdf. It starts off by talking about drones, which basically, we all have a picture in our minds, those unmanned aircraft that can kind of think for themselves.
Right, and it doesn't take long for the paper to connect that to the wider world of AI.
Exactly. It points out just how much computing power has grown, how much progress there's been in deep learning, and just the sheer amount of data that's out there now. All that's fueling AI's crazy growth. And you can see it everywhere, right? AI is beating champions in Go, it's dominating esports, speech recognition is getting better all the time, our phones can navigate us almost anywhere.
And all of that is just scratching the surface.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the paper gets to the heart of the matter. It calls AI a dual-use technology, and I think that's a really powerful way to think about it.
It is. Think of it like fire, right? You can use fire to cook food, heat your home, but you can also use it to destroy.
Exactly. And with AI, the paper's point is you could have an AI system that's designed to find, weaknesses in computer networks, but that same system could be used to defend against attacks or to actually launch them. And it even uses the example of drones, right? A drone delivering a package versus a drone carrying something harmful. Not a lot of difference there.
Right, and that's a pretty unsettling thought.
Yeah, and that's why the paper goes deep into the security implications. It makes the point that in certain tasks, AI is already outperforming humans. And it's not a stretch to imagine that happening in more and more areas. And so it lays out these potential threats across three main areas. Digital security, so think hacking and malware, physical security, which is where those autonomous systems in the real world come in, and then even political security, the ability to influence, say, public opinion.
And in that first category, digital security, just imagine how much more effective social engineering attacks could become with AI. You could have AI crafting super personalized emails or messages to trick you into giving up sensitive information. Or imagine sophisticated chatbots that can hold long, believable conversations, all designed to gain your trust and then exploit it.
It's a scary thought.
It is. And then there's the potential for AI to create convincing fake images and videos, so it becomes even harder to tell what's real online.
Which makes you wonder about all the stuff we see already. But then you've got, on the flip side, governments themselves looking to use AI for cybersecurity and military purposes. The paper even quotes Admiral Mike Rogers from the NSA saying that AI and machine learning are fundamental to the future of cyber defense.
Which is a pretty big statement.
It is, and we're already seeing machine learning being used to find vulnerabilities in code. But, again, there's that dual use element. What can find flaws can also exploit them.
Right, and if you think about how much our lives depend on secure code, that's a sobering thought.
It is, and the paper connects that to the wider trend of more and more drones and autonomous vehicles, which it flags as a big physical security concern.
It does, and it makes a really interesting point about how a handful of companies basically control the drone manufacturing market. You have one company like DJI holding a huge share, which, maybe makes it a bit easier to implement security standards if it's a more concentrated industry.
Makes sense. But then, shifting to political security, the paper goes into how AI could be used for highly targeted social engineering and propaganda. Think about it. We leave so much data online about what we believe, what makes us tick. And a sophisticated AI could analyze all that and create incredibly precise messages just to sway our opinions.
And not always for good.
Right, exactly. It could be used to spread misinformation, radicalize people, all sorts of bad things.
And it also ties into the whole issue of surveillance. The paper talks about how AI gives authoritarian regimes a powerful tool to conduct surveillance on a massive scale. Imagine AI analyzing mountains of data to identify and monitor anyone they deem a threat. And robotic systems could be used to enforce all sorts of things.
Definitely not a future I'm looking forward to.
No, but it's something to be aware of.
Absolutely. And the paper even touches on this idea of central access licensing for AI. Basically, the idea is that maybe if AI capabilities were mainly accessible through a few central providers and individuals or smaller groups didn't have the core technology, maybe that would make it harder to use maliciously.
Although you have to wonder how realistic that is in the long run as AI technology spreads.
Right, it's a tricky balance. How do you encourage innovation while also controlling the potential for harm?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But the paper's overall message is clear. AI is going to be a huge factor in security moving forward, and we need to be thinking about these risks now.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Our next source, 2401.02843v2.pdf, is a survey of a bunch of AI researchers where they were asked to make predictions about how fast AI will develop and what the impact will be. And some of their forecasts are pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, some of them are really out there. Like this survey suggests a 50% chance that by 2028, just a few years from now, we could have AI that can build a working payment processing website from scratch or generate music that sounds just like a new track from, say, Taylor Swift.
Wow.
Right. It's pretty wild.
And it seems like things are speeding up. I mean, the researchers estimate a 50% probability that machines will be able to outperform humans in every task by 2047. That's a pretty significant jump from a similar survey they did just a year earlier.
It is. But it's worth noting that they think full automation of all human jobs is still quite a ways off. So even though AI might be better than us at individual tasks, they don't see it completely replacing the human workforce anytime soon.
Right. But one thing that really struck me in this survey is how much uncertainty there is about the long-term impact of AI. Like, even though most of the researchers are generally optimistic about the future, a good chunk of them still say there's at least a small chance, like 5% or more, of some really bad outcomes, like even human extinction.
Yeah, and that's not something to take lightly.
No, not at all. And there's a lot of concern about the spread of misinformation, the potential for more authoritarian control, and even existing inequalities getting worse because of AI.
But it's not all doom and gloom. There's also a strong agreement among the researchers that we need to focus on understanding and minimizing the risks that come with AI. And they also looked at what's actually driving AI progress. And they found that the biggest factor over the past decade has been the decreasing cost of computing power. Then you've got the dedication of the researchers, the availability of data to train these AI systems on, the amount of funding going into AI research, and of course, advancements in the algorithms themselves.
It's fascinating how it all comes together. And the researchers were actually divided on whether faster or slower AI progress would be better for humanity. So even among the people building AI, there's a real debate about the best pace of development.
Which makes sense. I mean, this is a powerful technology. We need to be careful.
Absolutely. And the survey also found that AI researchers think the general public doesn't really understand AI, which could be a problem when it comes to having public discussions and creating good policies.
Right. If people don't understand the technology, it's hard to have a meaningful conversation about how to use it responsibly.
Exactly. And then they touch on the alignment problem, which basically means making sure that as AI systems become more powerful, they're still working towards goals that are aligned with human values. And although the researchers see it as an important and challenging problem, they don't necessarily think it's the most critical area to focus on right now compared to other urgent AI challenges.
It's clearly a complex field with a lot of potential, but also a lot of unknowns. And just for context, it's worth mentioning how they did this survey. They focused on people who had recently published research in top AI journals and conferences, so they're getting insights from the people who are really shaping the field.
Makes sense. All right, moving on to our third source, we've got the Wikipedia overview of artificial intelligence. And this gives us a really broad look at the whole field. It starts with the basic goals of AI, which include things like making computers that can reason, represent knowledge, plan actions, learn from data, understand and process language like we're doing now, perceive the world through sensors, exhibit social intelligence, and eventually achieve what's called general intelligence, which basically means being able to do any intellectual task a human can.
Pretty ambitious, to say the least.
It is. And the Wikipedia article does a good job of explaining the main techniques behind AI, including things like search and optimization methods, logic-based approaches, probabilistic methods for dealing with uncertainty, all sorts of classifiers and learning algorithms, and of course, artificial neural networks and deep learning, which includes these powerful models like GPT that you might have heard of. And it also mentions how important the hardware, the actual computers, and the software infrastructure are for making all this possible.
Right. It's
That
not
makes
just about the algorithms. It's also about the tools and the infrastructure that make them work.
Exactly. And then the article goes into all the different areas where AI is already making an impact, like healthcare, gaming, scientific research, finance, military technologies, and this increasingly popular area called generative AI, which can create new content like text, images, music.
It's amazing to see how far it's come.
It really is. But importantly for our discussion, the article also gets into the ethical side of AI, and a lot of the concerns that we've already seen in the other sources come up again here.
Yeah, it really highlights the potential downsides. Things like privacy violations, the power of big tech companies who control a lot of AI development, the environmental impact of training these huge AI models, the spread of misinformation and deepfakes, algorithmic bias leading to unfair outcomes, the lack of transparency in how some AI systems make decisions, the risk of malicious actors using AI for bad things like creating weapons, the potential for job losses due to automation, and then those long-term concerns about AI becoming an existential threat.
It's a pretty long list of things to be worried about.
It is. And the article also revisits that idea of creating ethical machines and solving the alignment problem. It talks about the growing open source movement in AI, the different ethical frameworks people are proposing, and the calls for more regulation.
Right, because as AI gets more powerful, we need to make sure we're using it responsibly. And what's really helpful about the Wikipedia article is that it gives you the historical and philosophical context. It talks about how the definition of intelligence itself has changed over time, the debate about whether machines can truly be conscious or sentient, and what the future of AI might look like, including more speculative ideas like superintelligence, where AI surpasses human capabilities by a huge margin.
It's a good reminder that these aren't just technical questions, they're philosophical ones too.
Absolutely. Okay, for our final source, we've got 6 predictions for AI in 2025 from the QQE research. This one looks at the very near future and predicts that 2025 will be the rise of agentic AI.
And agentic AI basically means AI systems that can be more proactive, take initiative, and overcome some of the limitations that are holding AI back right now.
Exactly. So the article argues that even though these large language models, or LLMs, are really impressive in how they can generate text and hold conversations, they have some pretty fundamental limitations because they basically work by finding patterns in huge data sets. And that can lead to problems with accuracy, bias, trouble distinguishing between correlation and causation, not really understanding the consequences of their actions, and it's hard to explain why they make certain decisions.
And those limitations become really clear when you try to use LLMs for more complex, goal-oriented tasks, which is really what this idea of agentic AI is all about. The article even mentions research showing that the accuracy of LLMs can drop significantly when they're given slightly different versions of the same problem or when seemingly irrelevant information is added.
So they're still pretty fragile in a way.
Yeah, in a way. And to overcome these shortcomings, the article points to a bunch of new AI reasoning technologies that are being developed. Things like chain of thought reasoning, where the AI tries to break down a problem into logical steps, semantic reasoning, which focuses on understanding the meaning and relationships between concepts, causal reasoning, which tries to figure out cause and effect relationships, and multi-agent reasoning, where multiple AI systems work together to solve a problem.
It sounds like they're really trying to make AI more robust and capable of handling the real world.
They are. And the article also makes an interesting prediction about how jobs in tech will change. It says that traditional software developers are going to start taking on more responsibilities that used to belong to data scientists and AI engineers.
So kind of a blurring of the lines.
Exactly. And it sees this happening in two ways. First, software developers are going to upskill themselves in areas like machine learning and data science. And second, these more sophisticated agentic AI tools are going to make it easier for developers to build and integrate AI models into their applications without needing to be experts in the underlying algorithms.
So it's this combination of more skilled developers and more powerful tools that's going to drive this change.
Right, and it's going to lead to a more unified profession where software development, data science, and AI engineering all kind of blend together.
That's a pretty interesting vision of the future.
It is. And the article even predicts that a lot of software engineering organizations will be using these specialized software engineering intelligence platforms in the near future.
So this is definitely a trend to watch. Okay, so as we've gone through all these sources, you can really see how the pieces fit together. We've got this rapid progress in AI and its dual use nature from the first paper, the predictions and the uncertainties from the AI researchers, the broad ethical and technical context from Wikipedia, and then this focus on making AI more capable with agentic AI in the 2025 predictions.
It's like a puzzle, and we're starting to see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is where these sources agree and where they disagree. Like, everyone seems to agree that AI is advancing super fast and has huge potential. But there's a lot of debate and uncertainty about the long-term consequences and how to manage the risks. This tension between the benefits and the risks of AI, it really comes through in everything we've looked at.
Yeah, it's a constant thread throughout the material.
Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways? I think it's clear that AI isn't some far-off futuristic thing anymore. It's happening now, and it's affecting everything. And the pace of progress is just getting faster based on what the experts are saying.
Right. And with all this progress, we have to think about the ethical and security implications, as the first paper in the Wikipedia overview really laid out. And the fact that current AI models still have limitations, and there's so much research going into making them better, especially when it comes to reasoning, that suggests we're on the verge of another big leap in AI capabilities.
Absolutely. And then you've got that whole discussion about the potential for really bad outcomes, which, even if they're not seen as the most likely scenario, are still a real concern. And that just highlights how important it is to keep researching AI safety and making sure it's aligned with human goals. So it raises a big question for all of us. As AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives, how do we find that balance between using its incredible potential and also protecting ourselves from the potential risks?
That's the question we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. And there's so much more to explore here, from the technical details of things like deep learning to the implications of AI for cybersecurity and everything in between. So if you're interested in diving deeper, we encourage you to check out the resources mentioned in these sources. They're a great starting point for your own exploration.
There's a whole world of AI out there waiting to be discovered.
It really is. And this deep dive, like all of our deep dives, was really for you, our listeners. We hope it gave you a good overview of what's happening in AI right now. What stood out to you as the most significant development or the most pressing concern? We love for you to keep thinking about these questions and maybe even share your own insights.
It's a conversation that needs to happen.
It really is. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See you then.